athletes can do a lot more than, just provide social media help, right? They can operate, they can drive revenue. They can do more things than people think in the startup world. And I
Yeah.
know companies like have validated that. I know companies are realizing that. I mean, you can see it with, athletes on the cap table at all these excellent, companies like where you're raising tons of money, right? And there's so many athletes on the cap table. Like athletes provide validation, they're great to have a cap on a cap table, but also they can be really strategic.
Welcome back to the show. My guest today is Casey Toohill, defensive end for the Commanders, Bills, and Texans. Casey is also an emerging entrepreneur and investor. His approach isn't the typical athlete playbook. Going beyond the face of sports tech companies, he's taken an approach that's pretty interesting with an investment thesis, more hands-on and insightful. He's gone deep with companies like Hydro, moving from product guinea pig in the locker room to working with sports science teams, and expand his thesis broader across different categories. Today, we'll dig deep into how he makes those calls and what lessons he carries from the field into startup. Casey, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What an intro, man. Oh, it got me fired up. Excited to go.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I guess before we kind of like get into like specific deals and companies and things like that, just wanted to go at the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey. I saw that you were a Stanford Cardinal, you played for the team, and you also have a finance background. Was that where your spark for entrepreneurship came from, or did it come from like a moment in the league?
Great question. I mean, Stanford, when you're in the heart of Silicon Valley, you're surrounded by, all the incredible students, teachers, former alumni in the area. It's hard not to get bit by that bug a little bit. I think when I was in college, like I was just mostly about, growth, whether it was in football or outside of football and learning. I don't think I had like a lot of structured thoughts about venture or, entering into the entrepreneurship kind of ecosystem. It was always something that was like interesting to me. And I was like, oh, I'd like to know more. And
Mm,
like, obviously like you see a lot of your classmates talk about starting companies, things like that. I mean, I wish I had probably been even a little bit more locked in because that would have been a excellent time to do some more thorough networking. But yeah, I think it was just kind of like the little like slow burn of like interest, I would say,
mm.
when I started at Stanford. But it's been really helpful now, obviously, as I've gotten more interested in this space as my career's gone football, to have that background, right? To be able to go back there and also, the alumni network, especially for the areas I'm interested in, is incredible. Definitely Stanford a great deal in my journey. But I would say, I probably wasn't even super intentional or as thoughtful in the space during that time as I probably am now. But it was helpful. It was a helpful start.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you said, you think of yourself right now as an entrepreneur of your body and your career. What moment in the NFL most shaped how you evaluate startups? And I'm going to preface this by saying not everything is a teachable moment,
Yeah.
but I feel like there might be some things that translate over, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I can answer this in a few ways. I think I'll start with what really helped me about like starting to see like entrepreneurship and venture was I did a fellowship with Next Play Legacy. They were Next Play Capital at the time, based in Redwood City.
Mm,
They're great in like the athlete investing ecosystem. They're fantastic. Ryan Neese does an excellent job. So they do a like kind of a 3-week crash course into venture and entrepreneurship for current and former professional athletes and also some like entertainers and actors and things like that. So I did that after my second year in the NFL. And that really was like what sparked the interest, even more so than Stanford. I was like, man, I love this. Like, this is really interesting to me. Obviously, like I have the network at Stanford and like people I can talk to. So that really like sparked the interest and got me thinking about this stuff in general. And then as like I've continued to play and, and network more and kind of like test my thesis, angel invest, all these things, kind of just all these like bits and pieces. I mean, I think I've really grown to just respect entrepreneurs more and more. I mean, just not only for the grind, the adversity, just, the the ability to have to, constantly evaluate your weaknesses, having your weaknesses being told you all the time, and then having to take that feedback and improve, or you fail, right? And
yeah.
that I think it's more of like my general day to day that kind of makes me, feel closer, feel like, I'm an entrepreneur in a way. I didn't start a company, but I feel like my journey in the NFL is very, very similar to that in a lot of ways. I wouldn't say it's like a particular moment. It wasn't like, like you said, it wasn't a teachable moment. It wasn't like, oh, this one game, right? Like I figured out B2B SaaS, right? No, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But it was, I think the day to day and how I approached my process of improving and how I approached my career made me start to realize like there were similarities with, the day to day of entrepreneurs and how they have to, my success and my exiting, right, is similar in some way to theirs, right, and their success. So just trying to like draw the parallels there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I always ask myself for a while, I'm like, how do athletes actually get to learn about these companies? Because I imagine it's a little bit overwhelming that you just get presented this new investment opportunity. You're like, whoa, like how does startup even work? Like, I feel like in that case of first impression must have been wild for you.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, that's still something I'm learning, today. I mean, venture investing is a really, really challenging game where you have to get a lot of reps. You have to develop pattern recognition. I mean, not dissimilar from football, right? Like when you first start playing football, it's really challenging and I mean, you see people at higher levels and you're like, how do they get there? Right. Like when I was in high school, I'd see like Ryan Kerrigan, like professional football players I really respected. I'd see them pass rush and be like, man, how do I do that? Like, but then it's like as you slowly build and grow, like you see, okay, you can start to close the gap a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it can be a tough process. It's can be hard as a professional athlete too. With the quality of deal flow you get, some people who want your attention. Sometimes people just
Yeah.
want you to invest. So it's really about surrounding yourself with good people and then really taking the education and learning process seriously. And again, I think my foundation with like the Next Play Capital, Next Play Legacy now, but Next Play Capital Fellowship, when I did it, was just extraordinarily helpful for me and really set like a good foundation and groundwork for me to like start that process, if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense. And so I mentioned earlier, you went from the Bills, helping them get to the playoffs last season, over to Austin now. It made that shift as well from working with, I believe it was 43 North, an incubator up in Buffalo that works with startups. And then, in this awesome ecosystem, I guess, do you notice any sort of like differences when it comes to deal flow or the types of founders, personalities, or what their focuses are on?
Yeah, I would say I've been more recently integrated into the Austin scene like the last few months or so. I mean, everyone from there that I've, networked with, talked to, I picked their brains. They've been fantastic. I don't think I have like a complete pulse on Austin. I mean, I do live in Houston, but what I will say about Buffalo's like very fascinating for me and like a unique case study in many ways. Cause most people don't live in Buffalo, New York, and then, are playing football, but then also interested in entrepreneurship, right? It's different, but the
Yeah.
43 North connection was really, really lucky for me. I think, what Buffalo does like so well is like obviously it's not, Silicon Valley, it's not New York City. So like you go there, you might not have high expectations for whatever the investing ecosystem is, but community there is just so supportive of Buffalo, right? Everyone in Buffalo loves Buffalo. It's such a great community and you can see that on the field, right? You can see that in the stands. That people love the Bills, right? So for me, like when I got there and especially, being on the Bills, like everyone welcomed me with open arms. Like they included me in everything. Like I got to meet a ton of entrepreneurs. I got to be part of their, pitch days, their evaluation process for their big pitch day event, which is in the fall. And it's just like an awesome, awesome event. I mean, they do a great job there, but I think sometimes you come into certain areas of the country with like biases about, okay, like, can I actually learn here? Can I actually grow here? Right. Like, is there a lot of deals happening here? Right. It's not, Palo
Yeah.
Alto, right? It's not San Francisco. That really like challenged my view on that because I just met incredible people that were willing to like go deep on a lot of, topics with me and teach me and then included me in everything. And the people there were just so supportive of each other and it was an accelerator. So they were so passionate about Buffalo and trying to get all these great entrepreneurs to Buffalo and support the Buffalo economy. So that was a fantastic experience. And yeah, I mean, I'm still learning and growing in the scene out here, but I think that was, a case study that I'm really thankful for because I don't know if I ever would have gotten that and would never have known about like how strong, the entrepreneurship scene is in Buffalo and how passionate they are about like helping each other.
Yeah, that's awesome. It kind of sounds like a underdog story, but I definitely have seen that with like, especially folks out in the Midwest or even in the East Coast. There's
Yeah,
this like huge debate like, hey, like is the West Coast the best coast for like startup or East Coast? And I've mentioned this before. For me, it's just, Silicon Valley is great, but you can excel anywhere, as long as you put your mind to it.
totally. And yeah, and that's what I saw. I mean, I was so impressed with some of the entrepreneurs they had in Buffalo and some of the people that worked at 43 North. And I mean, pretty much everyone that worked there. I was impressed with everyone. And just people in their network. I mean, it was just the conversations I had. I was like, man, like it's just I had so much to learn from them. And I really appreciated that I got that opportunity because like I never would have thought it.
Yeah, and speaking about opportunities, you had an opportunity when a strength coach gave you, if I'm getting the story correct,
Yes.
strength coach gave you a pair of compression shorts by Hydro, which
Yes.
helps basically with training and like, for any athlete or any individual wanting to make sure that they don't have to bear heavy loads and get that same intensity. That's what you
Yeah.
go to Hydro for. And you were able to get those compression shorts and take them actually to the Bills locker room. And I feel like you got that sort of validation to spread out throughout that entire organization. Did that also carry like some sort of lesson for you? Like that seems like a very, very cool story that I don't think we hear too much about
Yeah, that's
with
a
other people.
great question. So yeah, so the Hydro background is so I was with the Commanders. Our strength coach approached me one day. He's like, "Hey, or even before he had the product, he's like, there's this British company that has this blood flow restriction technology that they put in compression shorts because BFR is, it's all over the NFL. It's very, very well researched, extremely effective with muscle recovery. It's like you said for being able to get strength gains, hypertrophy gains with less weight, less load. So it's great in a rehab setting too. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. And obvious and honestly pretty underutilized because the machines are expensive and big and cumbersome. And I mean, most NFL locker rooms have like one or two. So it's like you don't always have access to it. But he was basically like, look,
Yeah.
they have these shorts. It does the same thing. I'm gonna get a pair. I'm like, yeah, sure, all right, whatever, dude. But then he got the shorts. I tried them after a few games. I tried them, and I remember I specifically tried them at a point in the season where I was just like, beat to shit. I was like, I feel awful.
Yeah.
Nothing's working. Like I need to recover. And I remember using them and being like, okay, this is legit. Like this is working for me, and it's so convenient. And it it was really easy to use because BFR also it's like you lay down on the table and it calibrates and it's like it beeps and it gets it wrong. It's just this process that can be really frustrating. And this wasn't. And it was safe. And I was like, okay, like this is awesome. Like I want to meet these guys. So after the season, I mean, I got connected through my strength coach and that started a long process, which ended up in me investing and joining as an advisor. But then, yeah, once I brought it to Buffalo, I was like, okay, it was validated first from a strength coach perspective for me, right? That's how I first saw it. Because if I had like one of my teammates or just someone else, like, that works, but also like someone I trusted, I knew they knew the science. I knew they had a vested interest in helping me, recover and improve. I was like, okay, this is a great product. I felt comfortable taking it to the Bills and being like, hey, this really helped me. You guys should meet with them. We should like figure this out because this is a game changing product. And
Mm.
yeah, so to answer your question, like you said,
Yeah.
that validation from an industry expert or, someone that maybe doesn't have something to gain, but can offer like a great third party perspective is just crucial, especially in the sports tech, wellness recovery space.
Yeah. And while Hydro's in sports tech, you said you don't want to be pigeonholed within sports tech. Your investment thesis is really gathered around just general across different verticals.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's kind of like a blessing and a curse. I think as a professional athlete, like you have a unique insight into the human optimization, wellness, recovery, sports tech space, right? Like you've put so much of your life into being the best at something, and then you ultimately, I think, have conviction in being able to speak in that area, right? Like
Yeah.
how the process of recovery works. Like you've tried every product at every price point, right? Like you've seen everything and like you can understand the process of what makes it like in an NFL locker room or an NFL training room, right? So you have
Yeah.
a lot of built up time and I mean, time on task, right? And reflection for a lot of these industries. But yeah, I mean, I think I want to push myself to grow and, find other industries that are really interesting to me and like continue to push myself as an investor and continue to just find new areas because yeah, I mean, I'd like not to just focus on a few different verticals or a few different industries, but at the same time, I do feel a good amount of conviction in these industries. So I feel like it's been kind of like a nice niche for me to start with.
Yeah. And one of the things about being an investor is, dealing with negotiations. You, I believe, took a course or learned from, Stan Christensen, who has his own podcast about
Yeah,
negotiations.
he does.
And I believe, yeah, and I believe one of his core concepts is that sports itself is just a finite game, right? It is you win, I lose, or I win, you lose. That happens every Sunday, rinse and repeat. But then really more so with businesses, it is an actual repeat game. Like you're thinking about the long-term goal.
Totally.
And I guess for you, like, I imagine for any sort of athlete, that might come with like a bit of a mindset shift. Was there that kind of mindset shift for you? Does that apply? Like when you're thinking about like investing into these companies, are you thinking about that long-term game?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question again. That class at Stanford was probably my favorite class I took all my 4.5 years. I did 5 years for, football. So I say 4.5, even though it was 4. That was definitely my favorite class. I mean, Stan was big on relationships and we would constantly do exercises with our classmates and as a class where we would do all these negotiations and it was basically like if you started to screw people over and lie and cheat just to make yourself better this one time, he was like, it rarely ever pays off. And he'd have so many examples of that, right? So that was obviously an important like moment of learning for me. And yeah, it doesn't really apply in the game aspect of football, but I think again the importance of like relationships and building the long-term relationships still matters in the day-to-day in any profession, right? It still matters with your coaches, especially if you're on a team for a longer period of time. I mean, I've always prided myself on, you know, building relationships in an environment where that's not inherently rewarded, right? Because football can be so fleeting and guys come and go and like really what matters at the end of the day is your performance. But if you can still focus on building great relationships in spite of all that, I feel like that's very special. So yeah, football can be in some ways a zero sum game, but I don't think I've really had to shift my attitude and my value system much because I think again the focus on like the day to day relationships and continuing to build that and not looking for the short term gain is always been important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And he also teaches this framework of like why, what, and who.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna throw a couple questions at you. Is more so like, why you as such an accomplished athlete are you thinking about like diving into startup entrepreneurship? You've already excelled, when it comes to athletics. And then what should be the thing that a founder should be coming to you for? What is the most appropriate thing to come to you for beyond just being the face of things? Because I know that's always the first thought that comes to their mind. It's either that or a check, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course. It's okay. To answer your first question, why? I mean, dude, it's a good question. Like, I think I remember just like, I mean, even when I was in college, I never like planned to play professionally. You know what I mean? I was like, great, if that works out, I'm gonna, try my best for that. But I'm also gonna have, I'm gonna do internships. I'm gonna learn other things. I'm gonna network. Like that's kind of just always been how I've been. I'd like to
Yeah.
consider myself multifaceted. I have other interests outside of football. So I think this was just something, especially early in my career, I just took a strong liking to, and that's been validated through, spending more time in it. So I think I just have always really enjoyed, having something else, and being able to like force myself to grow in other ways and really challenge myself. And that's what's great about, you know, this, pursuit of mine and this journey. It's challenging and it's different from my day job, but it's really just really exciting. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but really like
No,
it's just constantly trying to grow and just remind myself I'm more than just a football player. And I think, again, I feel very akin to a lot of entrepreneurs. So it feels like a natural kind of path to take. In terms of, let's see, your second question about how, like, what entrepreneurs should look to, what companies should look to athletes for. I mean, I think this is what I'm super bullish on is I think athletes can do a lot more than just post on social media. Obviously
Yeah.
I get why entrepreneurs want that. Like, I know there's definitely some ROI there and like the exposure, and that's great, especially for like the top level athletes, like for sure. But I think like athletes have a lot of, intangible skills that they're forced to develop by being at such a high level in sport that really can translate to the business world. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I'm not even breaking ground by saying that, but I think
Yeah.
companies can tap into this with like strategic partnerships. And I think they see, and like I know I've done it, like athletes can, drive revenue, give excellent product insights. They have an unbelievable network and they appreciate and understand the grind, because that's an important part, right? And that's why I think really, really be of service.
Yeah, you and I kind of talked about this beforehand. I get it. Definitely there is that value of having an athlete's face onto a product. You got to realize, I think, as a startup founder, this is me like really broadcasting out to them. It's more so like athletes get this all the time. How do they pick and choose? And then at a certain point, if they say yes to every opportunity, it kind of dilutes their brand, right?
For sure. Yeah, definitely does.
So I guess when you meet a founder, what are like the key intangibles you're looking for within them? You kind of spoke about that right now with the intangibles of an athlete. You got that work ethic, you got that ability to adapt, you have that ability to show up, discipline. Like, what are those same, I guess, are those the same factors you're looking for when a
Yeah,
founder approaches you?
I think it's similar. I'm not trying to say, it's one for one. I think obviously like founders have to have a wide variety of skills, probably even more diverse than I do, like for sure. But I think like, and I heard a VC who I really trust and respect. I had a conversation with him about this the other day. It's like he was talking about, founders being able to go through the muck, which is something
Mm,
that, not everyone can understand, but often like athletes and, people of military backgrounds kind of like understand that. Just like being able to like go through some hard shit and like still come out the other side and just embrace that and continue to go. That has a lot to do with grit. And then I think it really is being able to like look yourself in the face like each day and be okay, and like I wouldn't say, sorry, wouldn't be okay with
yeah.
I'll get back to what I was saying. But yeah, being able to be in the muck, but then also, being able to like teeter on, like you might fail at any moment, but you still need to like stay in the present, continue to work hard, continue to improve, right? Because like that's always in the background and you need to be okay with that because it's hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
between that grit and being able to deal with the muck, being able to deal with, failure that maybe is on the horizon, or the day-to-day failure, it's also like being able to like constantly iterate, right? And I think
Yeah.
like what I have to do as an athlete and like what I've done is like, okay, I constantly need to address, my weaknesses, right? What are those? I need to figure them out. Like they change every year, they change. Like I'm having trouble with this, like on a day-to-day basis. Like if this pass rush move isn't working, I need to figure out why, right? And then I need to iterate based off that and improve and like figure out who I need to surround myself with. Was it something in my diet I need to change? Was it a preparation thing I need to change? Right. And I just have seen with entrepreneurs, like ones that are able to constantly evolve, and, maybe it's whether it's the product, the team, their philosophy, like their business model, anything, like being able to be quick to evolve once are able to evaluate your strengths, your weaknesses, what's working, what's not. That's just such a crucial skill.
Yeah. You also see some startup founders trying to bio-optimize for their health too, right? Like, you see sort of like fad diets or like new tech out there for making sure they're performing optimally whenever they're like
I
coding
mean,
and stuff like that.
just sleep, man. You know what I'm saying? That's like people will do everything and then not sleep and not eat well. So I think if you
Yeah.
can cover those bases and work hard, you should be good.
Yeah. Eating well is very severely underrated.
It is. And sleep too, man. I'm telling you, like that again, being in like the space I've been in, it's like you try everything, like nothing really makes you feel better besides like actively, like, just generally taking care of your body and like sleeping and like reducing stress. It's like a foam roller is not going to do that for you. Your Whoop band's not going to do that for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I guess what's a big misconception that founders have about working with athletes?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I don't think I have never encountered, a founder that's been like, arrogant or like judgmental in any way of athletes. I think mostly it's, been like a great experience for me of like mutual respect. So I don't know if I can speak fully to like what I think, founders may not understand about athletes. I've always felt fairly like understood and respected. But I think again, generally like my thesis, and again, what I think especially a lot of what we're trying to do at Athletes and Assets is like help, these entrepreneurs realize like athletes are more than just like the social media portion, right? They can be great investors, they can be great advisors, they can be great operators, right? There's more to us than just, Instagram pages.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the proof is you actually being on the field. That in of itself was a long journey, through multiple tests. You got to make it through high school, then you got to make it through college, then you got to go through the draft, then you got to go through all that. So totally hear you on that. And then speaking of which, now a recent thing is we're in that NIL era, right?
Yeah.
So NIL is kind of reshaping the field. We also had that House and NCAA settlement come by where like now college athletes get to participate in those revenues, right? I guess your perspective here, do you think that it's, is it making younger athletes like smarter in investing, or is it maybe just a little bit too early for them to kind of get in? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really even know. I mean, I do wonder, like, I hope, athletes aren't getting taken advantage of, or it's like, shoot, if I was like 18, 19, 20, and you get a bunch of money, like, oof, that's hard to do. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what was so tough about being in Palo Alto, right, man? You can't do anything. You
Yeah.
can't eat anywhere in college, right? But if you have good amount of money, like that opens up a whole different world to you, right? The Rosewood or the Evia or whatever. But in all seriousness, no, I mean, I think what it really can do at its heart is obviously like I'm happy athletes are being compensated, but if there is opportunity to invest to, get some deal flow to start learning about that stuff, I think that's great to do while you're young. I mean, I would urge everyone involved to be very careful, right? Because obviously it's a pretty inherently risky endeavor. But I think that exposure, being able to like meet, cool founders, cool startups for even if you aren't going to play, a sport professionally and you just want to like network for, your future job and see how the real world works, right? I think that's a great starting point. And I hope a lot of athletes get to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so right now, what kind of deals are you looking at? I mean, what interests you? Are you really looking towards like pre-seed, maybe like mid to later stage? Are you looking at, AI? Everybody's looking at that. I'm assuming you might have an interest, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I like to try to look at everything. Again, I think we've talked about it, right? Like it's hard
Yeah.
not to get, a little bit pigeonholed into the sports tech type um field. But I
Yeah.
do think like again, health, human optimization is very interesting to me and always will be. So I'm always looking there. I mean, that really excites me, especially with AI, like you've said. I think there's a lot of improvements that can come to the preventative healthcare rather than, the current healthcare system we have. So that's really fascinating. Yeah. And then I think like, I mean, I know we spoke a little bit before the call or before the podcast. I think defense tech is something also interesting to me. And I think that comes out of an interest,
Really?
like kind of what I spoke about with, people with military backgrounds and athletes having a lot of, similarities in the preparation and, having to go through difficult things and I mean, their consequences are much more severe, but, having to deal with serious consequences for your performance. So that is, an industry I'm looking forward to like continuing to explore and learn more about. When I was in DC for those 4 years with the Commanders, like I was able to meet a lot of people who invest in defense tech, and that was always fascinating to me. And I was able to get some deal flow there and start to look at some deals in that space. I always enjoyed that. So yeah, I mean, just kind of trying to grow generally, but obviously there's a few areas that maybe hit a little closer to home for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely see, I mean, we're all seeing this spike in defense tech. There's a question about whether VC or should be the right partner for, I guess, dual use in defense tech, but I agree. Like the consequences of not doing so are so severe. So I agree. Like it's definitely like an area worth looking into.
For sure.
So let's end on a quick, rapid fire
Sure.
questions here. What's the most overrated startup space athletes are piling into?
All right, I'm going to answer this to my best of my ability, but I want to get your opinion on here, on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't like want to speak bad about my fellow athletes. I think most athletes invest in good things. That's what I'm going to say. That's not a hot take.
Yeah.
I think what's tough, and this is what I'll say, is like when you're an athlete, and I've been through this too, it's like obviously the industries you feel most comfortable in, the industries you may want to invest in are, easy access. They can be flashy, they could be cool, look at this new, supplement, right? Or like this new like clothing line or even like NIL stuff, like stuff that's like, oh, I played in college. Like now they're getting paid. Like this makes sense. All those things have extremely uh good potential for great investments. All those, like, I mean, there's great CPGs, right? There's great clothing lines, there's great NIL companies. But I think like those spaces can be crowded. And I think I would urge, my fellow athletes, it's just, really try to see what sets those businesses apart, what their mode is, because I think those can be easy to get into and it makes sense for you as an athlete. Like it makes sense for me too. But I think you just have to be cautious with that. And then I think overcrowded, I mean, I still am I wouldn't say I have a complete understanding of the NIL market, but I've seen a lot of deals there, and I see those constantly. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, obviously, I wasn't. Maybe it's just my jealousy of not being a part of NIL when I was in college, but definitely it seems crowded to me, and I guess we'll see who the winners are. That's my take. So what do you
You
think?
hit the nail on the head. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, man. I think that it's really hard to differentiate among particularly in the NIL companies. I think that it's very hard to differentiate. But I mean, there might be a few winners in the space, but the way you get there is just purely on who's on your roster, which is indefensible, right? People can jump from one company to the other, but that's just my opinion. I'm not an athlete. I'm not,
No, yeah, and
an expert by any means, but
it's confusing too because so many of the universities kind of do everything like in-house, right? Like at least my
yeah,
understanding, and like so much of it is like booster based. I mean, the whole NIL system is confusing to me. I'm like, how are schools going to consistently raise 20 to 30 million every year if the products on the field's not great, or like the donor fatigue? So I mean, if
yeah,
someone can help solve, you know, these in-house problems at these universities and the donor fatigue issue, like definitely a market there for it. But then, I mean, there's only so many number of collegiate programs that can participate. Like how many of them are also going to be able to pay these companies to help, right? So, because they could use that money to go to the athletes. So, I'm interested to see what will happen, and I'm definitely open to always talking to NIL companies. But I definitely feel like obviously I've seen a huge uptick in that.
yeah, definitely. Well, I'm curious to see how it evolves. Okay, so next question.
Okay,
Hardest
rapid
no you've
fire,
said
right?
as an investor.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, yeah, sorry. Hardest no you've said as an investor.
I mean, hardest no.
And you don't have to put the company itself on the
Yeah,
spot. You can just
I think
describe it, you know?
okay, I would say the scenario that's hard for me is, like, I've had so many great people send me deals, over the years, and deals that have, like, a quick turnaround that are like, "Hey," like,
Mm,
they need to know now or they need to know tomorrow, and usually those deals are, like, great deals to get in, but it's like, for me,
yeah.
if I'm angel investing, like, a big part of, like, what I've done and what is important to me, right, is, like, the relationship, like, the long-term relationship with the entrepreneur, with the team, really getting to know the company, like doing my process of due diligence, which like is like on a long time horizon, which probably doesn't work for every company, totally understandable. But it's hard for me to just pull the trigger like that, especially if it's a bigger check size. So I would say those are the no's that are hard because often they're excellent companies that come, well recommended from friends of mine or people I know in the space. They're hard to say yes to when it's quick like that.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfair too. Sorry, I know this is supposed to be
No,
rapid
it
fire,
is
but
it
this is a
is
little bit
unfair, but
unfair.
also, like, the
Yeah.
thing, you want deal access, like, sometimes they get it quick and they have to make a decision, and then you have to, you know what I mean? And that's again, I think that's what has always been my frustration too with, like, growing my network and trying to get better deal access, which was just always important is, you know, people send you things, but if you don't invest, they're not gonna send you more stuff, right? Or they're gonna send you things they need a decision now, or, like, they forget to send you things. So it's hard to build the deal flow through like networking like that just as an athlete, especially if you're picking and choosing and trying to be a little more diligent about what you're going to invest in.
Look, there are institutions out there that VCs, we call them PE funds. They even get they call it like a capital drawdown period, right? A capital call. It's an amount of time when, the deal is on the table and you have to ask your investors to give you that money so you can put it in the company. feel like it's very unfair still to ask an athlete, "Hey, invest tomorrow, or otherwise this is gone." So,
No, totally. And in those
um,
instances, like the LPs have invested in those funds, right? So it's like that
yeah,
makes sense and they know the game. It's like for me, it's like, oh, I just see this company right now. I know nothing about it. I can't even talk to the entrepreneur. Or if you do, it's like they're
yeah,
like, okay, like I'll talk to you, but the assumption is you're going to invest, right? Like they're not thrilled if you're like, oh, thanks for the call, but I'm not ready. It's like they took the time to talk to you because they expected you to invest. So it's a tough process. No one is to blame, but it's just like it's part of the game, right?
and last question we'll end on is, what do you see as becoming, like, the new standard? Will there be a new standard when it comes to athlete and startup relations?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think kind of what I'm doing, with advising athletes and assets, and I think what Noah has done a great job of, the founder, is really promoting the idea that, again, like I've echoed a few times on this podcast, athletes can do a lot more than just provide social media help, right? They can operate, they can drive revenue, they can do more things than people think in the startup world, and I know
Yeah,
companies like have validated that. I know companies are realizing that. I mean, you can see it with, athletes on the cap table at all these excellent, companies like they're raising tons of money, right? And there's so many athletes on the cap table. Like athletes provide validation, they're great to have a cap on a cap table, but also they can be really strategic and help in a lot more ways than just capital or just social media. So I mean, I think it's an exciting time. And I think a lot of
yeah.
people are starting to realize that, and a lot of people want to partner with athletes, and I'm all for it, and want that to continue to grow and improve.
Well, we look forward to seeing your journey. Casey, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for going into your career and also in your investing journey. Where can listeners follow you, reach out to you?
I have an Instagram at C2Hill, C the number two HILL, and then also KC2 on LinkedIn. Hit me up if you have cool companies or you want to jam on some stuff. I'm always interested in doing that.
Awesome. Thanks again, man.
Great,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.